Next I pick up 4 deuce of diamonds in the big blind, 4 players limp in, the small blind checks, I check, we go 6 ways to the flop, it's 6-5 deuce with 2 diamonds, we have a pair and a straight flush draw to go along with it. Small blind leads for 20, he's usually going to have a monster hand when he bets into 5 others, not sure there's much point in raising even though I have a big hand myself. I call, 3 other players call, we're going 5 ways to the turn, it's an 8, small blind leads for 60, I picked up a double gutter, any 7 or 3 will give me a straight, I suspect my flush draw may be no good with this many other players. Not giving up yet though, I call, under the gun +1 calls as well, under the gun +2 and the cutoff fold, 3 of us remain, the river is a 7, we make the low end of the straight, the small blind checks, there's almost no way that he has me beat, under the gun +1 shouldn't have me beat unless he had a flush draw with a 9 of diamonds. I bet 120 for value, it's not that large, hoping to get called by 2 pair or a set, under the gun +1 folds, he's the only person that I was concerned about, small blind doesn't want to let me have it without giving me more money, he tanks, then he calls, I turn over my hand to show him the straight, the opponent is a little upset that he's beat, but wants to show off his counting skills to the table.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
5, 7, 5s, yeah.
Oh, wow.
One more big pot comes our way. The night's going well for the most part. We're up over 900. We pick up 5-3 suited in the big blind at another new table. It's my first hand here. Under the gun +1 raises to 6,000. We've only got about 24 big blinds total. We 3-bet rip it. We've got to take some chances if we're going to win every chip in this room. Okay, we're not that crazy. We call for 3,500 more. It's heads up. We're out of position. The flop comes 7-4-3 with 2 hearts and a diamond. We've got bottom pair, a straight draw, and a backdoor flush draw. I check. Under the gun +1 is feisty. He takes some chips out of his enormous stack and he bets 8,000. We're certainly not folding. There are tons of turns that can help us. We have card removal for the nuts. It's obviously a flop that'll be connecting with our big blind defend range. It shouldn't really connect all too well with an early position raiser's range. I check raise jam for 53,000 total. I'd love to see a fold. We don't get it. The opponent calls quickly. I figure we're crushed. I'm relieved to see that we're actually ahead with our pair. Under the gun +1 has queen 10 of hearts. He's got a flush draw with 2 overs. This is about as close to a pure flip as it gets on the flop.
Get that blind.
All right.
That content now, baby.
Okay. Yeah, a couple low black cards.
We're off to the races. The turn is the king of spades. Seeing any pain is scary for me. It's down to one last card. If we lose, we're done. If we can hold, we'll be back alive with a decent sized stack. The river is the ace of clubs. We get another win.
All right.
It's like 50 something?
Yeah, I think I started the hand with close to 60.
This is such a key victory that keeps us in the hunt for a major tournament title. Shortly after, we've got 6-4 suited in the big blind. Mark raises to 30 from middle position. The button calls. I call for 20 more. We're going 3 ways to the flop out of position. The dealer puts out 8-7 deuce rainbow. We've got a gutter with a backdoor diamond draw. I check. Mark won't be giving us a free card. He bets 50. The button likes the flop enough to stick around. He calls. I can make an argument for folding, calling, or raising. I go with the call to see if we can drill the straight or pick up a flush draw. The turn is the 7 of diamonds pairing the board and giving us a straight flush draw. I check. Despite getting called in 2 spots, Mark fires again for 150, indicating a lot of strength. There's a slight possibility that we're drawing dead to the 5 of diamonds. The button folds. Our hand is just too good to abandon. If we're not up against a full house, we should have a number of outs. Feels like we're up against an overpair. I realize that some of you have never seen the ceiling at the win. We can't allow that to be the case any longer. It's beautiful. I call the 150. It's down to heads up. The river is the king of diamonds, giving us the sneaky backdoor flush. Our hand is hidden, and a high card is generally going to be better for the pre-flop aggressor. I check to give Mark an opportunity to bet. He may not like this card if he has queens down to 9s, but he's assembling a large wager. He bets 500. There's a better chance that he's got a boat after betting all 3 streets, but there's some chance that he's value betting a worse hand if he didn't expect us to have made a flush, and there's some chance he's bluffing with air. I call. We should be best a high percentage of the time. Mark shows us his new house, and it's full. He has pocket kings and got the perfect run out to destroy me as we both make big hands on the river. I lose a substantial pot, but I'm still up 1,000 on the session. At a new table, we're dealt 7-5 of hearts in the big blind. Under the gun +1 raises to 20. The hijack calls. We're getting a $5 discount, and we're closing the action. I call for 15 more. We're going 3 ways to the flop from out of position. The dealer puts out ace, queen, deuce, all hearts. We flop a flush in a multi-way pot. What's better is that the ace and queen of hearts are already out there, minimizing the amount of possible flush combos that we'd be up against that are beating us. I check to the pre-flop raiser. He doesn't want to fire. He checks. This is telling because he probably would have bet with 2-pair or a set. If he had a set of aces, for instance, this wouldn't be the type of board that he'd be slow playing. The hijack also checks. I can rule out him having 2-pair or a set as well. The turn is the queen of spades. I don't have to be all that worried about the board pairing. I can't let anyone see a free river card though. I bet 50 for value. Under the gun +1 is now going to all of a sudden represent a monster. He min raises to 100. The hijack realizes that he's no good. He folds. Under the gun +1 only has about 330 total. Since I ruled out under the gun +1 having a set or 2-pair on the flop, there's no way he'll have a full house on the turn. Perhaps he has king jack or king 10 of hearts and I'm drawing dead, but there are more trip queen combos that he might play this way that I'm ahead of. I'm not folding. I jam for 330 effective. Under the gun +1 doesn't believe that I've got him beat. He calls. I'm not particularly excited to see the call because even if I'm not crushed, the opponent will definitely have outs. I turn over our flush. The river is the 9 of spades. It's seemingly safe. The opponent doesn't have the winner. He throws his king queen face up into the middle. We get a great run out to stack another opponent. With this win, we're up over 1,700 on the session. We've got 8-6 suited in the big blind. The hijack min raises to 40. This is an odd amount. The small blind, who's been 3-betting a lot, makes it 120. This is another really small sizing. My sense is that neither player's all that strong. I could easily wait for a better hand to get involved, but on a scale of 1 to 10, that wouldn't be very fun. My image is good since I've only 4-bet with hands at the top of my range so far, and I haven't even 3-bet in some situations that I could have. I take advantage by putting in a cold 4-bet to 400. Usually, we'd want to do this with an ace in our hand. Today, we're living on the edge. This move will look a lot like aces, kings, queens, ace-king, and then some ace-queen or ace-5 through ace-deuce suited occasionally as bluffs. I expect it to get through for me pretty often. It doesn't this time. The hijack calls for 360 more, then the small blind calls for 280 more. This is a rare 4-bet multi-way pot. My perception of the hijack's min raise must have been way off. It might even be trapping with aces. If not, you could have another strong pocket pair like kings, queens, or jacks. Small blind on the other hand will probably never have aces. You could have other strong pocket pairs though. We're going 3 ways to the flop. It comes ace-5-3 with 2 hearts. It's pretty terrible for our actual hand, but it smashes our range, including the hands that we should have been 4-bet bluffing with. What doesn't do well on this flop is the hand that I actually chose to 4-bet bluff with. We've got nothing except a backdoor straight draw. At least any deuce, 4, 7, or 9 will help us improve. The small blind checks. I take a stab at it for 500 like I would if I had aces, ace-5, ace-king, and ace-queen. You saw me also bet this amount in a 4-bet pot with queens on a king-high board previously. My bet doesn't necessarily mean much by itself, but I'm hopeful that this could get most pocket pairs that miss sets to fold. The hijack is thinking for a very long time about what to do. It doesn't seem like he's contemplating a raise. It feels more like he doesn't want to fold a mediocre hand for only 500, but I'm not the only person that he has to be concerned about beating right now. He still has another opponent in the small blind that he has to consider. After a minute of tanking, the hijack calls. There's no reason for him to tank that long with aces if he was trapping pre-flop. You'd think that his decision would be easy, and he'd call somewhat quickly to continue setting the trap. Instead, the hijack at least appeared to be genuinely on the fence about whether to call or fold. I don't think that he's that good of an actor. If he is, he deserves an Oscar for nailing the subtle things that players do when they're making difficult decisions. The hijack might have something like kings or queens, and it's just calling one time for a relatively small amount to see how the rest of this hand plays. Small blind folds immediately. It's down to heads up in a pot that's already large. The turn is the queen of spades, making things very interesting. Again, I can have a ton of strong hands, including aces, queens, ace-queen, ace-5, and ace-3. After seeing my opponent tank when facing a flop bet, coupled with the fact that he didn't 5-bet pre-flop, I've ruled out him having aces and significantly discounted him having ace-king because those are pretty straightforward calls to make on the flop. He probably has ace-queen suited, kings or queens. There are 2 combos of ace-queen suited, and there are 3 combos of queens that the player could have for a total of 5 combinations that'll never fold if I take one more shot as a bluff. Meanwhile, there are 6 combinations of pocket kings that my opponent will have to auto-muck if I bet again. Even if my read on the flop was wrong and the opponent has ace-king, he's not going to like seeing me put more money in the pot because he'd be calling to basically chop at best. There's also some tiny chance that the hijack has a hand like jacks. With 11 total combinations that are the most likely ones that my opponent will have, and me surmising that he'll fold 6 of them, I put in another borderline suicidal bluff attempt, announcing a bet of
1,400? Yep. Take the house, what's that? 1,400.
It doesn't get much more interesting than this. I'm putting almost everything on the line. If we can win the pot half the time or more, it's a great play because we're risking 1,400 to win 2,200. I can talk about my reads on situations all day, but in reality, I'd never suggest that anyone put themselves in this position. I've invested $2,300 in a hand that I had no real business being in the first place. If I get called here, I'll have $1,700 in my stack, and I'll have to shut down on the river. That means I'll be stuck $3,300 on the session. I don't have too much time to consider how bad I'll feel if I lose, because the opponent snap folds, we get the Hail Mary bluff through in the clutch, our line looks like we have the nuts or something close to it, when really, we get lucky to take down a large pot with only 8 high. It's difficult to put into words how relieved I am to immediately get the fold, but you can see my hand shaking as all the adrenaline is coursing through my body. This one gets us above the even mark, and that's where we're going to stay. We pick up 9-7 suited on the button and raise to 30. The big blind wants to battle. Unfortunately, he rejects my offer to do it in Mario Kart 64, where I'm one of the best in the world. He wants to do it here at the poker table. He 3-bets to 90. It's a small sizing considering the fact that he's out of position. We're fairly deep. He has me covered. I'm getting just over 2-1. I call. We're heads up and about to play a large pot. The flop comes 10-10-6 rainbow. We have a gutter and a backdoor flush draw that if you're a longtime viewer of the vlog, you'll know that we tend to hit precisely 0% of the time. The big blind down bets to 40. He's been betting small fairly often, whether he's the pre-flop raiser or not. I'm getting over 5.5 to 1. I call. I may turn my hand into a bluff at some point. The turn is the king of diamonds. We pick up the flush draw. The opponent grabs 6 orange chips and tosses them in the middle. Again, I'm getting ridiculous odds to call. I don't get the sense that I'm up against anything too strong. I raised to 230 in order to rep a hand like a full house or trip 10s. I should be able to get hands that are actually beating me like ace queen or ace jack to fold. The opponent may even fold a king, pocket queens, or jacks. This gives me the opportunity to win without actually having to make a hand. Even if I get called, I can hit plenty of cards that will allow me to take down a larger pot. The opponent doesn't think too long before calling. Maybe we're drawing dead. The river is the 4 diamonds. We make the flush. I get lots of comments all the time about how important backdoor draws are and how often they actually hit. The truth is that they don't hit often, but when they do, they can bail you out big time and help you win large pots in unexpected ways. The player has no regard for my raise on the previous street. He bets 40. I have to determine if we're ahead and if this is a blocker bet, or if he's got something close to the nuts and is trying to induce me to raise again. The blocker bet seems way more likely. I raised to 450 for value. If he has trips, ace king or aces, he might be able to find a call. Maybe he just won't believe that I have anything and will call even lighter. I really don't want to see a third river bet. I'd have to fold. The player assembles some chips and then he makes the call. We turn over the 9 high flush in a 3-bet pot after raising the turn as a semi-bluff, getting there and raising for value on the river. I'm gonna have to take a shower after this one. It takes a long time for the opponent to process what just happened. He finally relinquishes his hand. The player on my left will later tell me that he saw the big blind had pocket queens. I make so much money with diamonds that the De Beers group is starting to get jealous. That's the most fun hand that I've won in a long time. The rest of the table is quiet as they're replaying it in their minds. We're up over 1,500 and Marvin can have all the catnip that he wants. We pick up 10-8 suited under the gun +2 at the third table with a $10 straddle on. Under the gun +1 limps in for 10. I'm in revenge mode and I want to get involved with as many players who came out for the meetup game as possible. I raised to 40. A player in middle position named Holden from Scranton makes the call. Under the gun +1 calls as well. We're going 3 ways to the flop. It comes queen 10 deuce rainbow. We have middle pair and multiple opponents. Our goal is to get the showdown as cheaply as possible. Under the gun +1 checks. I check for pot control. The player in middle position bets 65. Under the gun +1 folds. We can't be giving up second pair already, but I don't feel great about it. I call. It's down to heads up. The turn is the 8 of hearts, giving us a sneaky 2 pair. I check to the flop better. He's feeling confident still and fires for 180. If he had made it smaller, I would have contemplated putting in the check raise. I'm not totally sure I'm best, and I don't mind keeping the opponent's bluffs in. I just flat, rooting for a blank to come out on the river. There aren't too many of those left in the deck since a lot of cards will complete the backdoor flush, put 4 to the straight out there, or will counterfeit my 2 pair. The river is the 5 of spades. It's a beautiful card. My hand is one that I won't normally even have in my range, so the opponent should never put me on it. In his eyes, it should look like I've got pocket jacks or jack 10, maybe ace king, ace jack, or king jack. A turn 2 pair is probably the last thing on his mind. I check it over to the middle position player to see if he's comfortable value betting a queen or turning a hand like king jack into a bluff. I've got 535 left in my stack. The opponent has me covered. If he jams, my mind is already made up that I'll be calling.
No good.
Nice one.
We get an amazing run out to double up against top pair, top kicker. My mindset has completely changed. I felt earlier like I'd used up all my run good in the 1K tournament, and today I might just get wrecked. With this pot, my stack is up to 1,700. I'm only down 400, with sights on us booking a win.